First time on the show, we like to welcome in from GoVols247.com, Wes Rucker. Wes, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. How y'all doing?
Doing wonderful. Hey, thanks for joining us on the show.
Hey, no problem. Happy to do it.
Hey, it's really, I know your job's probably crazy all the time, covering a program like Tennessee, but especially right now with everything that's just going on.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's been, even for Tennessee, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. There's never a dull moment on the Big Orange Circus, but every time I've told myself I can't get any crazier than this, I've been proven wrong, and this is no exception. I thought it was about as crazy as it was going to get, and nope, it's gotten crazier.
Well, let's just take the last two here, because if we went through everybody that seems like it's been off for the job, we'd be here forever. But let's just take the last two in NC State's Dave Doran and Texas A&M's Kevin Sumlin. Both of those reportedly have turned it down. What have you heard from either of those situations?
Well, I don't know that Sumlin had an offer technically. I know that Tennessee has had some interest there, and I don't know how much interest he has. The backstory there is that Kevin Sumlin and Butch Jones are close friends, so that was probably always going to make it a bit of a tough sell for Tennessee. On the other hand, with Doran, I think that was a, I don't know if you want to call it an offer, but for all intents and purposes, it was an offer, and it's one that a lot of Tennessee fans were hoping he would not accept, and he ultimately did not accept it. I think he, just like Mike Gundy and maybe a couple others, turned down what would have been a pretty nice raise to stay where he was. So, I mean, this is a job at Tennessee that's got a lot of upside. You can win as much as you can just about anywhere, but it comes with a lot of pressure, and it comes with a fan base that's really passionate, and it's been kind of starved from winning for about a decade now. So that doesn't sit well around these parts. So it comes with a lot of pressure, and it's not for everyone. And I think some of these coaches are probably making the right decisions, because if they don't think they can do it for sure, they probably shouldn't take the job.
Yeah, and really what sent this whole thing into the spiral that it's in right now was the rejection of not the AD or the counselor or anything like that of Greg Schiano, but really just the fan base rejecting Schiano as their head coach.
Sure. I mean, I think that was most of the story. I also think there were some, at least a couple of high-level boosters and definitely some athletic department personnel who also were just irate. They did not want that hire either, and they felt kind of broadsided by that. So that was a bit of an incident, but certainly it was the fans that were a big part of it too. And I think that I don't think there's any question that Tennessee fans were unfair to Greg Schiano, but I would argue that if you don't want anyone who was involved in that Penn State program under Paterno on your staff or coaching your team, I don't have a problem with that. And if you're Tennessee and you think you can do better as a coach, I don't have a problem with that either. So I think it was an unfair message, but I don't think they were wrong about the bottom line.
Really, with all of this going on in Tennessee at the front of college football headlines right now, how is it affecting recruiting?
Oh, there's no doubt that it's going to affect recruiting. And, this was, people forget this, but Tennessee had a top 5 class nationally until, about a month or so ago. But there were already some commitments who were uncertain toward the end of the Butch Jones tenure, and there were some who kind of opened things up. And now you got a lot of kids who are just kind of holding on to faith that Tennessee's going to get this right. And I think it's a credit to the previous staff that the way, and I guess the current staff now minus Butch Jones, because the rest of them are still technically there, but they've recruited a group of kids who are pretty tight with each other, and I think that's kept some of them together. But there's no question that as soon as Tennessee makes a hire here, you'll have to shuffle the deck a little bit. Some guys won't think they're a good fit. Some guys won't love the new coach's personality. And maybe some people who were committed to play for the coach at another place will want to go play for Tennessee now. So that always throws a wrench into things. And, what speeds up that entire process now is the fact that the early signing period starts in about, just about 20 days or so. So things this Tennessee staff's going to have to hit the ground running. There's no doubt about it, because what was an elite class is now just a solid class, and we'll see what it looks like in a few weeks and then in February.
Yeah, and a big name, of course, that kind of fell from that class pretty much soon after Butch Jones was fired was Cade Mays, the offensive line recruit from Tennessee. Now people are saying, and the crystal ball is kind of leaning to either Clemson or Georgia, but I honestly believe that whoever Tennessee hires, you can't still count Mays out from Tennessee at this point, depending on who they hire, being, of course, where he's from.
Oh, there's no doubt, and not just that. His dad was Kevin Mays, who was an offensive lineman at Tennessee in the '90s. And that kid's a born-bred, country-fried Tennessee fan. And if Tennessee gets a hire that's a good, solid hire, I think that kid would probably ultimately go back to Tennessee. Now, a lot of people don't believe that, and that's fine. Maybe he will go to a Clemson or somewhere like that. It's certainly possible. He's a great player, and everybody's going to want him. But I do know he's good friends with Trey Smith, who's the freshman All-American offensive lineman at Tennessee. He's got some people in the program that he's really close with, and he grew up in a very, very Tennessee family. So I actually think you could make an argument that if Tennessee had kept Butch Jones, it would have had a worse chance of keeping Cade Mays. So I understand why people are looking at that the way they are. And I might be proved totally wrong about all this, but I actually think if Tennessee makes a pretty decent hire, which I don't want to assume at this point because God knows who they're going to hire, but if Tennessee makes a good hire, I think Cade Mays could be swayed.
You can find him on Twitter at Wes Rucker 247. Really, what's the next step for Tennessee football from here? First, on the coaching trail, where do you go from here?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that honestly we've been tracking pretty hard here for a few hours ever since the Dorn stuff kind of fizzled. I don't know. I mean, I would make darn sure that Jeff Brom doesn't want it because Jeff Brom is, in my opinion, a rising star and someone who's going to be a great head coach at the college level. I think what he did at Purdue was basically a miracle. And you look at his Western Kentucky offenses and his Louisville offenses and just how much upside he has as a coach and all those NFL ties and everything else, I think that guy's going to be a star. I would make sure he doesn't want the job. Aside from that, yeah, I mean, I think you've got to go, you got to cast the wider net. You got to go. I would personally, what I would do, I would think about calling Mike Leach. I think that guy plays an exciting brand of football. I think he's an interesting character, which could be boom or bust here, but he's gone to a couple of college football backwaters and made those programs really competitive pretty quickly. So I think that if I were Tennessee, that's a direction I would strongly lean toward going. But I know this, money will not be an issue for Tennessee. It's just finding the person who will accept that money and take the job. So they have money here. They're getting ready to dump $340 million into a Neyland Stadium renovation. So they've got the money. It's just a matter of spending it wisely. And there's a great question now. I mean, they could go to someone like a T. Martin, the former Tennessee National Championship quarterback, who's the offensive coordinator at USC. I guess I should say Southern Cal over there in that part of the country. But, there's something to be said about his connections and the former guys that he could bring, former Tennessee players he could bring onto the staff and maybe kind of get some homegrown guys back in there. But, I don't know that Tennessee wants to go in that direction. And I don't think Tennessee will call Lane Kiffin either. So you're looking at a smaller pool now, but there are still coaches out there. The problem is you're going to have to find ones this fan base is going to accept because, as we've all seen the past couple of days, if they don't like the hire you make, they're going to let you know it, and you're going to have a problem.
One name that's kind of circulated out there, of course, Glenn Jacobs, formerly WWE superstar Kane, threw out the name Les Miles out there. What is the status of that? Is that even an idea right now?
Well, I can tell you for certain that Les Miles would like Tennessee to call him. Now, whether Tennessee would do that, I don't know. But if Tennessee called Les Miles and offered him a good contract, I think he'd take the job. I think Les Miles definitely did not want to be out of coaching. I think he wanted to stay at LSU. Now, you get the good with the bad with Les Miles. I mean, you get a guy who's got a national championship. Those aren't, easy to get. You got a guy who has won the SEC. You've got a guy who has recruited very well throughout his tenure. So, and you've got a group of, they'll basically play YOLO ball. They'll go for it on fourth down. They'll try some risky things, but you could argue that some of his LSU teams, the sum was not as good as the parts. And if he were doing such a great job there, as much as they wanted to play up to their standards, then he'd still be there. So it's kind of like Sumlin in that way, in that, well, he did just kind of get fired. So you got to take the good with the bad there, but if Tennessee's search ended with Miles, I don't think you could say it was a bad search, but you do maybe wonder about some upside there, because if you're Tennessee and you're kind of shooting for the stars, well, if Miles struggled toward the end of his LSU tenure, I don't know that you would expect much more from him at Tennessee. But hey, he would make you relevant and competitive from day one. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, with all of the situations that Tennessee football is in right now, with coaching, some calling John Curry's job in question. I know. I read an article you put out about Rick Barnes in basketball, where the fans started a "Fire Curry" chant, and Rick Barnes definitely did not like that.
Oh no, they didn't just start it. They did it for about 2 hours during the game. It
Whoa.
was it was something else, and they tried to the band tried to play over it, which was awkward. You had the Fire Curry chants, you had the Bring Back We Want Kiffin chants, the Higher T chants, but mostly you heard a lot of Fire Curry chants. But I don't know if people are going to get what they want there, because Tennessee just got a new chancellor less than a year ago, and she wanted her first major hire was John Curry. So I think between that and the support he's got from a couple of the most important boosters, I don't think he's going anywhere just yet. But yeah, I mean, with the Schiano thing and the Doran thing, you took a Tennessee fan base again. If you took any fan base, let's say the top 15 or so winningest programs in the country, I think Tennessee's 9th all-time or 8th all-time in wins. If you take any of those programs and you make them go through a decade of what Tennessee's just gone through, and then you try to give them a coach they don't like, they're not going to like it. Especially in this social media age, when they get a chance to speak their mind and they can organize and rally, you're going to have a problem. And I think people are seeing that now, but it's a wild situation. I mean, a kid even got arrested during the game last night. It was something else. And the funny thing is, I think they were missing a pretty good basketball game while they were doing that. I think Tennessee's got a pretty good basketball team this season, but they were definitely there for not just the basketball last night.
All right, Wes, kind of in closing here, just what's the name that you think could arise for the head coaching job in the near future?
I mean, I think that you could look at names. I think Leach is definitely an interesting name that could emerge. I think Kevin Steele, the defensive coordinator at Auburn, former Tennessee assistant, I think he's someone who could emerge. And if you want me to give you a total wild card, I might say Cal head coach Justin Wilcox, who used to be a defensive coordinator at Tennessee, impressed a lot of people while he was here. Certainly helped some of Derek Dooley's teams play pretty good football on defense, and things weren't as good when he left. So yeah, I think there's a guy who, if Tennessee gets down to it and it gets a couple more no's, he could be a name to watch.
Wes, kind of tell everybody that's listening a little bit about Go Vols 247.
Sure. Well, I mean, we're a site. If you're a Tennessee fan and you want either just a little bit of news or you want all the news you can handle, we cover everything Tennessee does. We're all over football. We're all over basketball, women's basketball, which obviously is a big deal in Knoxville. Women's Basketball Hall of Fame's down the street, so we're not going to ignore that. Baseball, recruiting, all of it year-round. We have a free 7-day trial right now for anybody who wants to come check it out. And we actually have a lot of free stories too. We give a lot of sites just go all VIP stories, all pay stories. We do about half and half. We'll give you some good stuff for free, but obviously the best stuff usually is premium. So we got a lot of stuff to offer you, and I think for just a few pennies a day. So it's not that bad of a deal. If you're a Tennessee fan and you want to be more informed, come see us. We'll help you out.
There you go. You can also find him on Twitter at Wes Rucker 247. Wes, I thank you for joining us tonight, and hopefully maybe sometime in the near future we can possibly have you back on to talk about who exactly Tennessee hires and what's next for the program.
Yeah, who knows if that'll be anytime soon, but you never know. Yeah, I'm happy to help anytime.
All right, sounds good, Wes. Hey, I thank you for joining us, and good luck with Tennessee football.
Hey, no problem. We'll see what they can do with this. Happy holidays, guys.
Thanks, Wes. That was Wes Rucker from GoVols247.com.